Okay, solving quadratics by the square root method. Alright, so before we begin, we need to know what a perfect square is a number made by multiplying a whole number by itself. So to undo a perfect square, you take the square root of it. So here we have 4 times 4 is the same thing as 4 squared, which gives us 16. And then the square root of 16 is going to be plus or minus 4, because negative 4 times negative 4 gives you 16. So this will be 36. 6 times 6 is 36. And then the square root of 36 will be plus or minus 6. And then you have negative 8 squared. And then the square root of 64 would be plus or minus 8. Okay? And then to do that in Desmos, you just look for the square root sign. Alright, so now we have a new inverse operation. So instead of addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, we now have a square, and the opposite would be to square root. Alright, okay, so now let's apply this to start solving quadratics. So the n squared is equal to 100. So I'm going to take the square root of n squared, and so that's going to give me n. And since I take the square root of this side, I also have to take the square root of this side. So the square root of 100 is going to be plus or minus 10. And again, if you have to use Desmos, you can. Alright, so next we want to take the square root of, we're solving t squared is equal to 7. So again, I take the square root of this side, take the square root of this side. So that's going to give me t is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. So I can also write it like that, or I can write it as the decimal, getting the square root. Alright, next one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do these two for you as well. So we'll take the square root of 121, that'll give us plus or minus 11. And then the square root of x squared, that's going to give us x. And then looking at this one, if I take the square root of r squared, that'll give me r. And now the square root of negative 3, okay, if you plug that into Desmos, it's going to give you an error. So we're just going to write undefined. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to add another step. So if you see, we have x squared plus 8 is equal to 33. Okay. So again, we're just solving a quadratic like we have been for the past several weeks. So x squared plus 8 is equal to 33. So if I have my table, I have x squared plus 8, and then I have my y. Okay. So let's make sure we see it in the table. So this y, this 33 is a y, so I put it here. And then I want to figure out what is the number that when I square it and then add 8 to it will give me 33. So in other words, what is that number? Well, here's a way that we can get that outside of plugging this into Desmos. We can subtract 8. 8 minus 8, that gives us 0. So that's going to give us x squared is equal to 25. And now we'll take the square root of both sides. And so now x is going to be equal to plus or minus 5. Okay. So if I want to go back and check, I can enter 5 into my table. So 5 squared plus 8, that's going to give me 33. And then if I want to go plug in negative 5, well then negative 5 squared plus 8, that gives me 25, and then 25 plus 8, 33. Okay, next one. Alright, so next we have 2 times the quantity, x plus 5 quantity squared is equal to 98. So our first step here is we want to cancel out this 2, so we're going to divide both sides by 2. So this is going to cancel, and that's going to give us x plus 5 quantity squared is equal to 49. Alright, so again, setting this up in my table, I have x, and then I have my process column, and then I have my y. So this would be x plus 5 squared, and this is going to be 49. Alright, so I want to know what x can I plug in here that's going to give me x plus 5 squared, and then gives us 49. Okay, so here's how we will solve that. So we're going to take this, notice I can take the square root of this since it's squared. So I take the square root, that gives me x plus 5, and then I take the square root of this side as well, and so that's going to give me plus or minus 7. So this is going to give me, so now I'm going to go x plus 5 is equal to 7 and solve that for x, and then I will do x plus 5 is equal to negative 7 and solve for x. So I subtract 5, so x is equal to 2, and then I subtract 5, x is equal to negative 12. So my solution here is going to be x equals 2 and x equals negative 12. So now if I go back over here to my table, I can start off with 2, and that's going to give me 2 plus 5 squared. That'll be 7, so 7 squared is 49. And then the same thing with negative 12. I can go negative 12 plus 5 squared. Okay, so that'll give me negative 7, and then square it, and that gives me 49. So my solutions are going to be 2 and negative 12. Alright, last one. I'm going to do this one, and then you can do the you-dos, and then have Mr. Adams check them. Alright, here we go. Okay, so here we have x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. Notice here my coefficient is 1. Now one option I have here is to do the x box. Okay, we can do the x box. However, let's speed this up a little bit. Okay, since my coefficient is 1, watch this. If I just set up my box, okay, if I just set up my box here, this would be x squared, this will be 9, and I know this is going to be x, this is going to be x. So what two numbers will I get that I can put here and here that when I multiply will give me 9, but then when I add them up right here, they give me 6x. Okay. So if you know, so your factors for 9 are going to be this, 1 times 9, and then just 3 times 3, okay? So look at this, 3 plus 3 gives us 6, so this will be 3, this will be 3, and so that gives me 3x, this gives me 3x, I add that up, that gives me 6x. So my factors here are going to be x plus 3 and x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, and look, I have the same factor, so I can rewrite this as x plus 3 quantity squared is equal to 0. So now I can take the square root of both sides, and so that gives me x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so then subtract 3, and so now x is equal to negative 3. Alright, so now it's your turn. So do the u-dos. Okay, do the u-dos, and then have Mr. Adams check them.